Hey everyone, welcome to the Stride to Freedom podcast. My name is Russell Benaroya, and I'm the co-founder of Stride Services, a virtual back-office bookkeeping and accounting firm serving hundreds of clients around the United States. This podcast is designed to help small business owners focus on growth and innovation. In other words, focus on those things that inspired you to start your business in the first place. We call it your Genius Zone. We do our job on this podcast when business owners feel like they have the trust and confidence to build the right team of partners around them that will help them grow. Thanks for joining. Let's go. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Stride to Freedom podcast, where we help business leaders get and stay in their genius zone. What is your genius zone? Your genius zone is that place where you lose track of time, where the work that you're doing is effortless, where people say to you, "Oh my gosh, how do you do that?" And you say, "I don't know. It's just what I do." And for many business owners, they're spending a disproportionate amount of time outside of their genius zone. So we bring guests on the show that are in the business of helping business leaders achieve their highest and best use. My name is Russell Benaroya. I am the host of the Stride to Freedom podcast. Our Genius Zone at Stride, which is the sponsor of the Stride to Freedom podcast, is to help business owners achieve their highest and best use by using their financial data to make better business decisions. Stride Services, again, the sponsor of this podcast, provides outsourced back office bookkeeping, accounting, and fractional CFO services for professional service firms. Okay, let's jump into our call today. I am so pleased to welcome Noel Andrews to the show. Noel, how are you, buddy?
Hey, I'm great. Great to be here, Russell.
It's so great to have you. This is a milestone moment for the podcast. I have never interviewed anybody across the pond, so I'm feeling global. I'm feeling international today. So thank you for growing our world.
Hey, no worries.
Let me tell you a little bit about Noel, and then we'll jump in and hear firsthand from him. Noel is the CEO and founder of a company called Jobrack. Jobrack is, as he states it, where successful businesses hire the best remote talent in Europe. Noel has created a marketplace that is totally fair and aligned with the needs of employers like you. And I'm going to let him go into detail and talk a bit more about it. But what inspired me about the conversation when we were preparing for this podcast is that I think Noel has taken a very thoughtful approach on both sides of the marketplace, both in how he appeals to employers that are looking to bring on talented individuals, as well as to how he thoughtfully sources individuals to be available for opportunities that matches where they want to develop in their careers. And I love the marketplace. I love the platform. There are probably others out there that you're thinking, oh, well, doesn't so-and-so do that? And so-and-so. And we'll have Noel talk about how he's a little bit different. So let's jump right in. Noel, question for you. What is something coming out of the pandemic or post-pandemic that you really appreciate more than ever? This does not have to be work-related.
Time face-to-face with people. I think it would be. And ironically, because obviously I run a business that we are like 100% remote with our team, and we encourage people to hire remotely. And there's huge benefits and kind of possibilities that arise from that. And obviously the world has woken up to remote work, but also then appreciating and encouraging people to then get face-to-face. Whether that's we're arranging our first team retreat right now, and really excited to do that. And again, it doesn't need to be every day, it doesn't need to be every week, but getting face-to-face with people is a good thing.
It does make a big difference. What is something, because you operate a 100% remote culture workforce and your business has been built on it, what is something culturally that you have done that has been effective in connecting people to Jobrack's purpose and to each other?
Yeah, so within the business, so we have afternoon tea every Friday at 3 p.m. We have 30 minutes, and the team, it's not mandatory, but most of the team do join. And there's only one rule: there's no talk about work, and we just get to know each other. So we've been putting a lot of effort into the kinds of almost like serendipitous moments that don't happen when you're remote, right? You don't have the water cooler conversation. You don't have the coffee machine conversation. You don't tend to go to lunch with your colleagues. So we're doing a lot of things like that and recreating them in the virtual world. So yeah, afternoon tea on a Friday afternoon, and office radio is another one that's coming soon.
Okay, awesome. And is the afternoon tea, is it just conversational? Like people are just chit-chatting about whatever comes to mind as long as it's not work related?
Yeah, absolutely. So recent topics have included worst movie you've ever seen and why.
Yeah.
How to psychoanalyze your partner, because one of my team is a kind of a trained psychologist, and how to kind of work out and stay fit whilst working from home. So all kinds of really random conversations, and it gets into, what are people doing for the weekends, things like that. Just intended, helping people get to know each other.
Oh, I'm glad you opened that up. I bought these cards. They're great conversations, and I just leave them on my desk. And so whether it be with my family or at work, sometimes I'll like pull out a card and I'll read the card. Okay, so I'm going to read one to you. And this question is, Noel, who taught you how to ride a bike? Who taught you how to ride a bike?
That was definitely my mum.
And how did she do it? Did she like run behind you and hold this? Like, do you remember it?
I mean, I must have had I remember having stabilizers for a little while.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, I remember falling off a couple of times, but you only got to fall off a couple of times. Then you make sure you don't fall off much more because it hurts, right? So remembering it that way, yeah.
All right, all good. Well, listen, let's jump in. Let's talk Jobrack. Give me a bit of background on the business, why you started it, why you felt it was important, and what you've learned about managing this marketplace.
Yeah, sure. So Jobrack was born in a forum post in a community that I'm a member of way back in 2015. And there were a couple of guys who were both basically hiring software developers from Eastern Europe. And this community, there were lots of people struggling to get good developers. And these guys were kind of shouting about how great Eastern Europe was. And they ended up having a conversation and kind of like said, we should do something about this. Other people would like access to really great talent. So they actually created and launched Jobrack, and it kind of went on for a couple of years before kind of they had bigger main businesses going on, and kind of it was sidelined for a little while. And then it was either going to get shut down if it wasn't sold. And so October 2018, just again, kind of little moment of serendipity, and kind of I jumped in and bought Jobrack. It was very, very small at that point. Like I said, it had been mothballed kind of for a year. And I jumped in. I'd spent 15 years in the kind of the corporate tech space. Was pretty entrepreneurial and had done some things a lot around recruitment and interview coaching. And it just seemed to be a perfect opportunity. And I liked the fact, particularly, not only was it around remote work, which even back then it was clear that was just going to keep growing, but also it was already niched down to Eastern Europe. And so I'm a big fan of having a business that's a niche within a niche. And if you can go another step further, then great. So yeah, the fact it was in that niche, the Eastern Europeans, people in general are fantastic to work for, with great kind of qualities, which we can dig into. But yeah, so I bought it for not very much money, and then kind of spent the last kind of 3.5 years now, kind of steadily growing it. The first 2 years were very, very slow and steady. And then the last 18 months has been kind of like hockey stick growth, which is exciting.
If you were talking to a fifth grader, how would you explain what Jobrack does?
So we help business owners all over the world hire really, really great people from a very specific area of the world, which is Eastern Europe.
And why does that service need to exist?
So business owners all over the world have kind of woken up to this opportunity that exists through hiring remotely. And there's a couple of kind of things that come with that. So one is that often the very best people don't happen to live within commuting distance of where you live or where your office might be, if you have an office. And so then you think, well, I want the best possible people. And so then you look around the world and you look at where they are. And then you normally will hit upon some kind of constraint, that maybe there's a language constraint, or maybe there's a cost constraint, or maybe people want different things. And so Eastern Europe is a real sweet spot of remote hiring, where there are incredibly highly skilled people with really great English, great education, just an astounding work ethic, and coupled with really great value because they have a lower cost of living than we have in the UK, the US, Canada, etc. So kind of giving business owners this opportunity to grow and hire really great team members for kind of basically potentially earlier than they could otherwise afford to hire, and helping them get better quality people than they could otherwise get kind of locally.
So what would be a good example, or maybe a few examples, of the types of hires that seem to work out really well for companies sourcing talent in Eastern Europe?
So probably the most common that we talk about is software developers. So software developers if you're trying to hire a software developer in the US right now, well, just make sure you've got your therapist on standby, because it is a hard job. We are seeing kind of junior software devs come out of kind of college and university and looking for 6-figure salaries. And in some cases, many cases, they're getting them, even with kind of what's going on right now in the industry, as we sit here in kind of summer 2022. So software developers are a really common one for us because, like I said, the technical education in Eastern Europe is phenomenal. The work ethic is great, really great English. And because that cost of living is lower, they're typically maybe 50% of the cost of hiring in the US. And you get equal or better quality, and you don't get the sense of entitlement that is sadly a little bit too common in the Western world just now amongst workers. So software developers is a big one for us. We also do lots of kind of technical specialists, so things like PPC, SEO, graphic design. We get into kind of project managers and operations managers an awful lot, and then down through kind of customer support, virtual assistants, and really great kind of assistants, kind of helping business owners to kind of get things off their plate. So a real broad range, but kind of software developers is where it all started, and we still do a huge amount of that today.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Why would a company not look to source talent in Eastern Europe? Well, let's stay specific. Let's stay niche in Eastern Europe. Why would they not do that? What is a reason where they would say, "Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, Noel, like sounds like a really neat business, but that's probably not for me." Why would they say that?
Yeah, so there was one key reason, and it depends on the role. It's time zone. Okay, so if you have a role, let's say you have an account manager role, and the account manager or sales maybe, and they spend all day long, 9 till 5, East Coast time, West Coast time, Central time, whatever time zone it is, on the phone with customers, then that can be tricky to cover from Eastern Europe, because Eastern Europe is going to be 6 hours ahead of East Coast time. It's going to be 9 hours or so ahead of West Coast time. And in my opinion, you do not get the best people working night shifts, right? Russell, you and me, we would not be thrilled about giving up our evenings and our hobbies and the things we like to do Monday to Friday evening. And I don't see why any people elsewhere in the world are any different. Now, there's other regions of the world that it is really common for people to work night shifts and match hours to the US. However, I don't think it's healthy, if I'm really honest. Long term, the effects on the body, effects on health and wellness just aren't great. And so if you said to me, I need someone to be able to work, kind of afternoons, evenings, US time, I'm going to say, hey, have a look at Latin America, potentially hire locally. But if you're looking for kind of lower cost and still high skills, then potentially Latin America. For most roles, though, there isn't that 100% kind of synchronous work requirement. And so as long as you've got, typically 3 or 4 hours crossover, you can achieve a huge amount, and you can then play the kind of geo arbitrage game and benefit from the time zone in that, your team have done half a day's work even before you come in. So you're kind of ahead of the game. So there's lots of benefits to actually leverage what can sometimes be seen as a downside.
Would you say that most of your employer clients are in the US or broadly in the West? Where are they geographically located today?
Yeah, we're about 70% of our employees are in the US, and then the rest are distributed, or US and Canada, I should say, and then the rest distributed across Europe, Asia, Australia, New Zealand, places like that. So a real spread, but 70% in the US.
Okay. What advice would you give to an employer who is going to be managing this resource in how they might have to adjust or adapt the way that they lead, manage, guide, coach, plan, process, strategize, all of that? Are there some tips of the trade, so to speak, that you could pass on?
Yeah, so I think some of them are kind of generic to remote teams in general. Okay. And the number one is just invest your time. as you kind of grow as a business owner, as your business grows, the number one thing for you to spend your time on is your team, communicating to your team, one-to-ones, developing them, training them, building connection and building culture. That for me is the number one for any remote team. And the good news is it's often quite fun, right? Going along to afternoon tea on a Friday afternoon, recording little Loom videos as I'm out and about, letting the team know what I'm up to, deciding on, who we're going to recognize in kind of this month's team meeting, things like that. It's actually pretty good fun, and it has really, really great results. So I think overall, the number one thing for any remote team or any person managing and owning kind of a business with a remote team is that communication and investing in your team. I think specific to Eastern Europe, the most important thing is just prepare yourself for some pretty direct communication. So one of the things that can be a frustration in other areas of the world is where, you will get team members that just will tell you yes. They will tell you what they think you want to hear. And that is not something that we get in Eastern Europe. We get the opposite. We get very direct, almost blunt communication. So if they think you're wrong, they will tell you. It's polite, but it's just pretty direct. If they think something isn't possible, or if they think there is a better way of doing something, they will tell you straight, which at first is startling, then it's refreshing, and then it's difficult to kind of look anywhere else, because that is just unheard of in certain regions of the world, because it's just not kind of that, a kind of a particular area's culture. And it is so good when, if you make a mistake, and most business owners, that if they're anything like me and they're not great at being clear in their instructions or in their delegation, sometimes we'll ask for a square wheel. There will be better ways to do things. So having people that will actually call you out on that instead of just going yes and then delivering something wrong a few weeks later is fantastic.
Do you like Jobrack, or do you accept that Jobrack is bucketed in the gig economy phraseology, or do you see Jobrack as maybe a little bit different than how that gig term might be perceived?
So thankfully, we're definitely not in the gig economy side of things. Okay. And the key thing for that is, so we don't do freelance roles and we don't really do project roles. So our focus is very much on helping kind of business owners and agency owners hire long-term team members, is how we phrase it, right? So permanent team members that are either full-time or part-time, but people that are, we have to be careful. They're not an employee from a legal perspective, but they are a team member and they're kind of committing to you for the long term, and you're committing to them. So these are really people that you can build your business around. And that, I think that makes a big difference, because, yes, we can delegate tasks to kind of freelancers and gig workers, but you're not getting their shower thoughts, as I've heard it mentioned. And I really like that. I want people that are committing to me in the same way that I commit to them. I think the flip side is, I think we can probably, people refer to industries that they're not particularly fond of. And we often hear, recruiters, real estate agents, traffic wardens. They're the kind of collection that we often hear get kind of lumped together a little bit. And again, I like to think that we're pretty different from most recruiters. The fundamental thing for us is, my entire strategy is to be helpful and friendly. And what we're seeing is that actually the more helpful and more friendly we are, actually things come good from there. And we just want to help people out, help them go through that hiring process, both the job seekers and the employers. And, a lot of the calls that I jump on is just helping people and helping them figure out what's right for them. If I think it's Eastern Europe, I'll let them know. If I think it's somewhere else, I'm going to guide them that way, because that's what kind of, for me, keeps the world going round. So yeah, that's probably our differentiator, is just that, we're helpful and friendly, which shouldn't be a differentiator, but actually it is.
I know sometimes just showing up is itself a differentiator, responding to people in a timely way. It's so funny. Like, your greatest competition is very rarely other companies. It's yourself and your own process breakdowns. Although, just to bring up a question around broader competition to help listeners get some context, they may know about a pretty well-known marketplace called Upwork, although not everybody has heard of it. It's probably the most well-known globally in terms of being able to access a freelance economy. How would you've already touched on it. I just want you to be specific. How would you distinguish or differentiate from somebody that might say, oh, that's pretty cool, but I could go on Upwork, and Upwork's got like a bigger marketplace, et cetera?
Yeah. So I think the key thing for me is, if you are hiring a team member and you want someone for your team, then one of the big things that I feel you should have direct is the financial arrangement, right? And it's paying them directly. Whereas with Upwork, that is not the case, right? Upwork are an intermediary. They're taking their commission from both of you. They're taking their commission from you as the employer, and they're taking their commission from the job seeker as well. And so that's always in the way. And so they don't feel, for me, they don't feel like kind of a team member in that same way. And also, it was likened recently, it was likened to me like, if you're on the online dating scene and you meet someone, and do you stay on the apps or do you come off the apps? And what's that right time? It's the same with the team member, right? Are they really fully committing to you? Are they coming off Upwork? Now, the answer is no, because they're still getting paid through Upwork, which means Upwork is actually still emailing them about other opportunities. That's not cool, right? That's not the kind of relationship I want with my team members, or for the team members of any of the clients that we work with. So that's the big thing for us. It's about, we're kind of helping you find, hire, and then succeed with your team members, and they are your team members.
And so if I wanted to, say, hire an account manager, and I wanted to do that through Jobrack, you would get on the phone with me or somebody at your organization to really understand the role, scope the role, what's the arrangement, what are the needs, and then you take that information and then you go and find candidates. Is that right?
Yep, exactly that. We put a lot of effort into understanding exactly what you want. And this isn't, we've got very kind of straightforward, plain English questions that just make you think about what you want. And every now and again, I'll get a client that wants to rush this process. And it's like, nope, this is the most important bit. Figuring out what you want and what you need is crucial. And then, yeah, exactly as you said, sometimes there might be a role that is good just to advertise on Jobrack as the job boards. There's a DIY option. A lot of the time, the best candidates are not hanging out on job boards, just waiting for your job to pop up. So yeah, we have to do, what you mentioned, we have to get out there and source them and headhunt them and kind of hunt them down. And that's kind of one of the key things that we do for you. We go out and find the right people and then do all of the painful work associated with hiring, sifting, filtering, reviewing, doing screening interviews, capturing videos, testing them, just to get you down to what you really want, which is the 3, 4, 5 candidates, the handful of candidates that are the right ones for you to then interview and go forwards with.
And Noel, how does an employer have confidence that you are capable and able to source really great candidates in Eastern Europe? What is your methodology? What is your access? What's your strategy?
Yeah, so I think there's two things. So one is, we have hundreds and hundreds of clients and now well over 1,000 hires behind us, which kind of tells a good story. Two is that, we go out and source from around about 32 different channels, depending on the particular role. We're in all kinds of places, from private Slack groups, Facebook communities, Telegram messenger groups. We do sourcing on GitHub for developers, all kinds of different weird and wonderful things. In terms of how, kind of a business owner can have confidence, well, the key thing is I put my money where my mouth is, as it were, and we have a guarantee, absolutely rock solid. So if we couldn't hire for you for any reason, we just refund you. If anything goes wrong in the first 3 months, which we work really hard to make sure it doesn't, but it's people, you never quite know, then we replace for free. So things like that, I'm a big fan of, having an absolutely solid, almost over the top guarantee, because, for us, we have confidence in what we do. And we want to kind of not have that kind of risk or concern be a factor for people that want to hire.
Mm-hmm. And what is the fee arrangement? How does that structure work with Jobrack? You obviously you're building a business yourself, presumably.
Yeah, we got to make some money. So yeah, we keep it really simple. So we have a DIY option that you can just post on the job board for $249. And then the done with you service, which is the main one where we're doing all the work. We have 3 tiers. So if you're hiring a kind of tier 1 role, so virtual assistants, customer support, marketing assistants, things like that, is $1,650. Then we have like a mid-tier, tier 2, which is for kind of technical specialists, PPC, SEO, ops managers, graphic designers, and it's $2,500. And then we have a top tier, which, just because it's particularly tough to get really good developers, and it's software developers and tech leads, and that's $3,500. And that's a single fixed fee, one-off. There's no commissions ongoing, etc. And like I said, it's completely risk-free in that sense. So yeah, we find that works really well. We find that's really fair. There's lots of, the conventional recruitment game is it's 20% or it's 30% of salary. And, for us, that doesn't make a lot of sense. So we're doing it in a way that makes sense for us and makes sense. It seems to be working so far.
How would you compare that fee, call it $3,500, to a fee that I might pay somebody in the US that's in the search business to find a developer?
Yeah, so you would typically, so let's say you're hiring a senior software developer in the US. You're probably going to be paying, if you pay kind of a search firm, probably somewhere between 20 and 30% of kind of first year's package and starting salary. And you're probably going to be paying them, I don't know, $150,000 a year, something like that. So, kind of 30% of that, 30% of that is you're into kind of $40,000, something like that. A very, very significant sum, often with less guarantees than we give. And, if they can find people that are going to stay, because there's a lot of kind of like upheaval and kind of shift. So it's a pretty big difference. Yeah.
I love your business. Like, I really appreciate what you're doing. I mean, especially that fee, like that's a 10x difference. That's pretty unbelievable. What are the risks? What are the risks that I, as an employer, should just keep in mind? I mean, nothing's ever riskless. And so that's what entrepreneurship is about. It's about weighing risks and trying to harness some control of variables that you don't entirely control. So what should I be aware of?
Good question. I think if you don't kind of follow my number one tip earlier on, which is to really invest in your team and communicating with your team. If you don't do that, then the risk is that they never feel really invested in you and your business, right? It's a little bit different if people are coming into the office every day, right? Because they're making effort to come there. They're seeing you every day. They're getting some of your time just, randomly. So I think there's a risk that people don't feel that connection. And that's why I encourage business owners so much to, really put a little bit of time and effort. And it doesn't take a huge amount of time and effort to really make your team feel like a team. So I think that's a risk, that people don't feel connected. And therefore, as a result, don't feel as kind of committed to you, and therefore potentially are more likely to look for another role at some stage. I think similarly, the salaries are very, very competitive. So typically, a senior software developer might be kind of 40 or 50% lower cost than in the US, still paying really, really fairly for where they are and for great quality. But I think, again, if you don't kind of keep an eye on that with people, and I have really open conversations with my team about their salaries, about what they want for life, about what's important to them, and just keep an eye on that, right? So just because you've kind of got them at a lower cost once doesn't mean that you shouldn't invest in them and give them rises and raises and things like that. So I think just having those kind of conversations, make sure you're looking after your team. It's, everyone kind of talks about like a garden analogy, right? If you water them, they will do really, really well and do really well for you. So I think that's the key thing, just invest in your team.
I'd like to make a pitch for a structure that we've put in place called a statement of alliance. It was originally termed, I think, by Reid Hoffman at LinkedIn as a tour of duty, but we call it a statement of alliance, which is, hey, when we come into a relationship together with an employee, there are certain things we obviously need and want from them, but there are things that they want from us. And if we can establish that and document it up front, what success looks like for them, both in their personal and professional lives, and we can maintain that information with a high degree of transparency so that they see that we're willing to help them if they want to go to business school, or they want to learn new skills, or they want to meet certain people, or they want to take on certain responsibilities. If we don't know that, then we're not going to be able to help them. So that communication, that transparency, especially in a remote environment that takes an intentional effort to establish it, has been really important for us. So that concept of statement of alliance, I could see that working really well with the folks that you invite to connect with your employers.
Definitely. I mean, I think that works well for everyone. I mean, I talk a lot about setting expectations from ways of working and communication, things like that. But I think that's beautiful. I think that I'm definitely going to kind of pinch a little bit of that, Russell, because I like that a lot. And I think it is just getting it down and just, some people shy away from conversations, especially when it comes down to salary and money. And I'm like, no, let's get it out there. Let's know what you want. And I might not be able to do it right now, but let's at least know what we're working towards.
This is a timely question probably, but any geopolitical risks or issues that somebody might want to be aware of as it relates to Eastern Europe, or that's just stories that we're telling ourselves in our head potentially?
No, I mean, there's always things to consider wherever you are in the world. So you want to consider the geopolitical situation, right? So, there's a couple of countries, or, two countries in particular. Obviously, the situation in Ukraine and Russia right now is tricky, right? And there's a lot of people getting displaced and kind of struggling there. We don't see, touch wood, much of a, we're not seeing any impact across the rest of kind of Eastern Europe, thankfully. I think there's also, you've got to consider things like infrastructure, right? So there's parts of the world that get affected by severe weather or internet or power outages, things like that. Consider that. Thankfully, again, that's just not a thing in Eastern Europe. Half my team have better internet connections than I do at a lower cost than I do, and I'm in London. I think it's always worth keeping an eye on it. Again, I mean, we have geopolitical issues in London. None of the trains are running across the entire country today.
I know, that's insane.
It's insane, right? And then, you have similar situations sometimes in the US with, budgets not being approved, things like that. So I think it's a good question to be aware of, but thankfully we see things being, very, very stable.
What is something that people might find surprising about operating a business like yours? You've owned it for a few years. You probably walked in with your eyes as wide open as they could be, but never wide open enough because you don't know what you really got until you get in there. What's something people might find interesting?
I find interesting.
Or surprising?
Yeah. I think there's a couple of things. One is how much our team love working for Jobrack. Right. And I have, to the extent that I have testimonials from my team on job posts when we hire, because they really, really do love working for us. And there's two reasons for that. I think one is because we really invest in creating a team culture and kind of creating that connection. But two is because they've got real purpose. So if you imagine for someone from Eastern Europe getting to work for a business that's helping other people from Eastern Europe get better jobs, then that is beautiful, right? And they really, really love that. So I think just how committed remote team members can be. And that's not exclusive to Jobrack by any means. There's, a lot of our clients have invested and are investing in their team culture, and the level of commitment that you kind of get from people that are really appreciative of, the chance to work for a US based business, the chance to, make a difference and kind of earn more money than potentially they could locally is huge. And I think the other thing that's surprising is actually the quality of English from Eastern Europe. That is startling. Right? I think it's easy for us in the Western world to just assume that everyone else's second language is as bad as our second languages are. And thankfully, that's not the case.
Oh, I love it. I love it. What is something that you would want your clients, the employers, 70% of what you said are in the US and Canada. What is it that you would want your employers to know about Jobrack to see you more fully than just like a transactional partner that's helping them find people? What is something you would want them to know to feel like, wow, they're really special?
So it's something that they tend to find out once they work with us, and they get an inkling of it. I do a lot of videos. I go and see people. I put a lot of effort into that. The thing for me is that we really are as helpful and friendly as I say we are. And it's really difficult to put that across because it sounds a bit cliche and it sounds like sales patter and all that kind of stuff. But we really live and breathe it. And that is huge, right through all of the values that we kind of instill in all of our team. It's, how can we help people and how can we do it in a friendly way? So what's our voice when we're emailing people? How do we greet people? Things like that. And so, when people see me do my very casual Loom videos and Bonjoro videos that I do, just saying, hey, catching up, that kind of pervades through. So if you want to be dealing with, a partner or a supplier that is very stiff and formal and, feels like a, old school corporate, that's not us. If you want to kind of be dealing with someone that you can have a good chat to and that's going to be there on the end of the phone when you need some help and probably at some stage is going to want to have a beer or a coffee with you, then give us that's where we kind of play.
And how is Jobrack getting visibility among employers?
So exclusively through referrals and partnerships.
Okay.
I had some fun setting fire to around about $10,000 or $15,000 on Facebook ads at the start of the pandemic. It's amazing what people will watch when they're locked down and they've run out of Netflix to watch. And so that just didn't work for me. And then what I realized was that, when we do a really, really great job and when we make people happy, they're very, very happy to then refer us and do introductions for us. And, most online business owners are in communities or they've got friends, etc. And that has been super powerful. And the biggest tip that I had at the start of January this year was just ask people for introductions and be specific about it. And that is working incredibly well for us. And then we've now expanded that into kind of partnerships. And again, it's very much focusing on like win-win. How can we help other people? And then in turn, that kind of often comes full circle. But yeah, just through kind of referrals and partnerships, and doing a good job. We've just onboarded a customer success manager who is basically there to ensure that our clients hire successfully. Her role is hiring success manager, and her job isn't actually to ensure they hire successfully. Her job is to actually ensure that they turn into a raving fan. And that's the sign of success for us. Because if we help them hire successfully, that's one thing. If we do it in a way that they're so thrilled that they then refer to us and they come back, well, kind of business, I hesitate to say business becomes easy at that point, but a good chunk of it becomes an awful lot easier.
Do a good job, referrals and partnerships. Do a good job, referrals, partnerships. It's like the same for every business, and it's so simple. And we spend all of this energy going out and pursuing inbound lead gen. And I'm not totally dismissing that there's application there, but the lowest hanging fruit is referrals from existing clients and channel partnerships. And that's so fundamental. And it's amazing to your point. Hey, well, sometimes all you have to do is ask. Like, put that mechanism in place where you just ask. As much as we'd like to believe we're in our clients' orbits all the time, I don't know. They've got businesses to run. Noel, this was awesome. Anything I didn't ask you that you feel is important to communicate, that you would want people to know about you, the business, your purpose?
I think, so one of the big things for me is I really like helping people. A coach a few years ago identified that I actually, one of the things I wanted to feel was appreciated. And I really bristled because I felt, well, that's really needy. And I eventually accepted that it was, it's kind of true. But I just really, really like helping people. And so from my perspective, if there's anyone listening that is kind of wondering if they should hire remotely, maybe they've not done it before, they've done it before and had a bad experience, and would just like to have a chat. And it doesn't matter if you're thinking of Eastern Europe or not. I'm always willing, very, very happy to just kind of jump on and help people out, right? And that for me is kind of what makes the world go round. I am very fortunate in that, I love jumping on calls with other business owners. So I think that's a big thing for me. So if anyone wants some help in that sense, always happy to jump on and chat. I think aside from that, just, like you said, ask for referrals. That's been the absolute game changer for me. I tell people up front that I'm going to ask them for referrals, and I'm going to ask multiple times. And I'm like, look, if it gets too annoying at any point, just tell me to stop. That's no worries. And then, 3 times through the process, we ask. And then every couple of months after that, we keep asking. And nobody minds. Not once have I ever been asked to stop.
I love it. So if people are listening to this and just want to jump on learning more about Jobrack or get in touch with you directly, what are the mechanisms to do that?
Yeah, just head on over to jobrack.eu, and you'll find plenty of ways to kind of book a call with me, and from there, and lots of information.
Noel, thank you so much for being on the Stride to Freedom podcast today. I was excited to have you on after the original introduction from our mutual friend, Marcel Petitpas. So let's acknowledge him for making that introduction from Parakeeto. And you just opened my eyes to a model that feels very authentic and high value. And really appreciate seeing that a marketplace focused on a particular geography embodies so much of the attributes that companies in the West are looking for. And these individuals are well-educated, operate at a high level, great English speaking skills, competitive wages. Like, what a great way to think about resourcing to build a business that doesn't require your constraint of only being able to draw from the people in a limited geography. And it's so eye-opening. I hope people take advantage of the opportunity to learn more from you. Really appreciate it.
Hey, no worries, Russell. Really, really loved it. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for watching, seeing, listening, hearing another episode of the Stride to Freedom podcast. We will see you on our next episode. Have a great week. Take care. See you, Noel.
See ya.